Hello, I'm Tate Hieronymus, and I'm with the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. And tonight I am joined with Eduardo Sanchez. I messed up your name. Sorry, man.
That's all right, man.
How
Glad
are
to,
you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to be here. How's it going with you?
I can't complain. I do have a little chemical burn from the hot tub, but whatever. It happens.
Hey, man, that's the dangers of the hot tub.
Yeah, so trying to just put some lotion on it or whatever I can. Aloe
Yeah,
vera.
keep it. Yeah, don't let it get dry.
No. It only gets worse when it gets dry.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Edward, I really wanted to talk to you about Bigfoot. Really, that's why I reached out. And I guess my question is to you first off: what really got you interested in the subject of Bigfoot?
I mean, I was just a little kid when in the 70s. So Bigfoot was huge in the 70s, but I remember seeing somewhere on some documentary or something, the Patterson Gimlin film. And that to me really was like the spark as far as like, me getting into any kind of, any kind of supernatural or any kind of cryptoid kind of, field. Because like for me, Patterson Gimlin was just like, I couldn't believe it. As a kid, I was just like, holy crap, that's Bigfoot, and to this day, I mean, no matter what you believe about it, I'm kind of one of these people that like, I don't want to make my mind up either way. You know what I'm saying? It's an impressive piece of filmmaking if it is filmmaking. You know what I mean? So I think that to me was like the ultimate, terror. The idea of like, kind of walking them in the woods, and all of a sudden you see this thing walking across kind of nonchalantly, and you happen to get it on film. Like to me, that was just kind of the thing of like wonder and a thing to fear. And I think that really because of that is what kind of led to, my interest in Bigfoot and my interest in, anything paranormal, ghosts and UFOs and Loch Ness Monster. I became a huge fan of that show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and unsolved mysteries. I mean, anything, everything that kind of had to do with either UFOs, Bigfoot, or ghosts, I was really into. And that's eventually what led, to Blair Witch. So I think that without Patterson Gimlin film, I don't think I'd be talking to you right now. I don't think I would have made Blair Witch.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like I was telling you before we started, it seems like because of Bigfoot, I've done these things that I didn't think I would do, and it sounds like it's the same for you. You wouldn't have done Blair Witch if it wasn't probably for Bigfoot or seeing that film.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I was interested in filmmaking, especially after Star Wars, just kind of ignited my, my need to just kind of learn about filmmaking and study it. So I think, I would have probably, I don't know if I would have continued to make, I don't know if I would have, been successful as a filmmaker without Blair Witch, but I think that the idea of Blair Witch, like the seed of it is so grounded in Patterson Gimlin for both, I think, me and, Dan Myrick, the guy I co-wrote it with, that I think that, without it, I think, I don't think the Blair Witch would have been the same without Patterson Gimlin, because to me, that's like, really the first or one of the first kind of instances of like found footage, that's exactly what that was, so.
I was gonna say that makes a lot of sense because like it is kind of a found footage thing, more or less, and Blair Witch was found footage, and that was like really cool. I never thought of it like that, so that's pretty awesome. Why was it the reason for Patterson Gimlin film, or kind of that reason that wanted you to make Blair Witch?
Because like when I was a kid, there was. I kind of had the same debate I'm having now with that footage, is the idea that like, okay, chances are they didn't really film a real, Bigfoot, but it looks really great. Like it looks so much better than any kind of suit is supposed to look like, especially, back when it was shot. So for me, it kind of like, even though it could, the chances are it is fake, I never like let myself believe that it was fake. Like I completely like, almost like programmed myself to like believe, quiet art too, totally like be taken away by that kind of stuff, like by Bigfoot being real. The possibility of Bigfoot being real. And I used to be like scared. Like we had like a little patch of woods behind my apartment complex, and I could, I swore that Bigfoot lived there. I would always, hide, think about, is Bigfoot, is he tall enough to look through my window, or is he too short for that? Like all that stuff kind of, went through my head. So when it came time to do Blair Which, both Dan and I kind of looked back at our experiences, not only Patterson Gimlin, but with like, the Legend of Boggy Creek. And we were like, that's how we want to feel again. Like we want the audience to feel fear again in that way. Like in the idea that like, what you're watching could be real, it could be real. I mean, so that to us was kind of like the hook that Patterson Gimlin taught us. And then, Legend of Boggy Creek, like, continued on down that path of like, well, this is a dramatization, but it's based on real events. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that, just intrigued us. We thought it was like a really cool way to scare people, that hadn't been done in a long time.
Oh, it definitely was pretty scary. I have to admit. But so talking about movies and Bigfoot, one of my, in my opinions, is one of the best Bigfoot movies out there ever exists. What was the idea? Like, what was the idea behind that? Like, what gave you the inspiration for that? It had to be obviously Bigfoot related.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Blair Witch came out in 1999, and we didn't make another movie for a while. Just for a long, it was a long story. That's for another podcast. But I like one of the first things that I wanted to do after Blair Witch was I wanted to do a Bigfoot movie. Like I was like, oh, now I can make my Bigfoot movie. So, in one way or another, I've been writing Bigfoot movies almost my entire life. And I wrote this kind of like this big budget Bigfoot movie that got optioned and got some attention, but it was just too much. It was too big. You know what I mean? It was like, I needed to. I wasn't like the filmmaker that could pull that off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I got a lot of recognition, for it. Everybody, and it's still one of my favorite scripts that I'd like to produce one day. But the big lesson was like, bring the budget down a little bit, and then maybe it can be, you can actually do it. So we wrote another Bigfoot movie, and this was probably around like the first one was, $50 million, $40 million. This next one was like maybe 10, and we wrote the script, and it was it had like a kind of mixed found footage. And we loved it, and we went shopping, and there was a little bit of like there was a lot of companies that were interested in it, and Legendary Pictures loved it. They were like, oh my God, we've been wanting to make a Bigfoot movie for 10 years now, and we've like actually hired people to write it, and this is the first Bigfoot script that we think like nails it, like really kind of comes comes through with the premise of making a Bigfoot movie. And we were like, oh my God, we're going to be making a movie with Legendary, and they're big time, and we were super excited. And then we were talking about the deal and all that stuff, and where we're going to shoot it and everything. And then Legendary threw it up the flagpole to Warner Brothers, and because they had an output deal with Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers was like, we're not going to do a Bigfoot movie. Are you crazy? Are you nuts? So they called back, and they were like, we can't do it, whatever. And we were like super disappointed. But at that point we were like, you know what? If nobody's going to give us the money to make a Bigfoot movie, let's do, let's write a cheap version, like an inexpensive version, and let's just shoot it ourselves, like we've done all our other films. So that's when we got kind of the team together. We got the team that had previously worked on a movie called Lovely Molly with me, and we got, I got Jamie Nash. We came up with a quick story, and kind of went from there. It first started out as like a normal movie, like it wasn't going to be found footage, and then the closer we got to actually making it, the more I realized, and all of us realized, that that like Bigfoot is kind of tailor-made for found footage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we were like, let's switch it to found footage and see what happens. And we were pretty happy with that decision. And for me, it was like the big thing for Exist, and really all my Bigfoot movies, but I've always been like disappointed somewhat with like the portrayals of Bigfoot either on television or in movies. And I really wanted to like put something together that felt real, and like where Bigfoot felt menacing, and where he it looked like a real creature instead of a guy in a suit. And I think that was the main priority for Exist, is the idea of like creating something that didn't look like most other Bigfoot movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because that's another reason it's probably one of my favorite ones of all time, because it actually looks like a Bigfoot and not some kind of mangy dog-looking Bigfoot that most films have done.
Yeah.
And there's actually purpose for why Bigfoot is doing what he's doing in the film.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we like, for me, like Bigfoot is, is some kind of missing link,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that there is a lot of human, characteristics in Bigfoot. So, it was really important for me, as a fan of Bigfoot, and as kind of a, like an amateur, enthusiast of Bigfoot. I've read books, and I've read, books about, that treat him as real. Like, what would he eat? What would, where would he live? Like how, what kind of lifestyle would they have if they would, living in the woods in the United States. So for me, it was like, keeping it as real as possible. Like the idea that like this thing is still somehow living in, in the deep woods of the United States, So, and it was important for me that, if, logically, if this thing had, Bigfoot is like a, if you believe him, then he's a great, they hide great. They're like, there's a meme going around years ago, like, that, Bigfoot's like the world champion hide and seek,
Yeah.
Because they're always, they're hidden, and that's great. So for me, it was like, there'd have to be a big, like a major reason for this creature that is always like running away from humans to come and attack, and bother a group of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's why that, there had to be some kind of like, just something that people could relate to. Anybody can relate to, like losing your kid and being angry and just having to, dealing with those, emotions. And it was really important to me that Bigfoot wasn't just like a killing machine. You know what I mean? That it was just that it had reasons, like biological reasons, and just like, even like character reasons for why it was doing what it was doing.
Yeah, and I love that, and there's definitely sympathy on both sides for Bigfoot and the humans.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie, it was like unexpected. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But in the beginning of the movie, you're like, why is it doing this? And then you're like, oh.
Yeah, you figure it out. Yeah, man, and also like the end of the film was like a big surprise for me, because like I knew that there was going to be this kind of standoff, and like and the Bigfoot was going to like let our final character live, like actually show humanity, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure how I was going to shoot this, because it had to be found footage, and we're like, where's the camera and all, and how, and the big question was like, how close am I going to be able to get to, the creature? And it was just an amazing thing when we realized in early in the camera tests, with Brian Steele, who was the guy in the suit, And Michael Azaldi and the guys at Spectrum Motion that designed the suit and put it together. When we had a test of Brian Steele in the suit for the first time, we were amazed by how close we could get to the face. Like it was like it looked like a creature. Like there was, So for me, it was like, all right, man, I can get right in there, and Brian can give me the emotions, and it can look like it can look like some kind of creature, and kind of pull off these kind of emotional beats that I thought were important for the end of the film. So if I was able, I was just really surprised and really happy when I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be able to get right in there, because the makeup is just looks so amazing,
It was, yeah. And there was no animatronics on the face. It was all just makeup, right?
It was all him. Like, that was the way we designed it, where like, we wanted it because, obviously you could do animatronics and, have the actor do some of the movement, but we decided that it would be more of like, like the prosthetics would be attached to his face so that Brian could, be emotional and kind of, give us really perform. And he's just, he's like the best, one of the best creature people I've ever worked with, creature suit people. And he really got into the character, how, this thing walked, and how it ran, and like he would send me these crazy videos of him running in his backyard, and it was a lot of fun. But it was really cool to be able to like see, because I remember the first time that he was on set, like we started shooting, and then Brian came in, I think a week into the shoot when we started shooting the Bigfoot stuff. And I remember like the first thing we shot was that chase when he's chasing the guy on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, Brian stepping on to the set, we're in the woods and we're like in Texas and it's hot. And it was just like this moment of like, holy crap, there's Bigfoot, And my partner, Greg, who was one of the producers on the movie, I leaned over to him and I'm like, dude, he was excited as me because he's a big Bigfoot fan as well. And I was like, dude, man, we're finally making, our Bigfoot movie. So it was a lot of fun, man. And it was a great experience. And, and we were really happy with how the film turned out. And, it was made a lot of good friends and a lot of great collaborators. And it was a very positive experience.
Yeah, that just sounds, it has to be a fun time doing something like that, something you love and on a subject you love too. One of my favorite scenes in that movie is when everybody's in the cabin, it's all dark. And then you have the Bigfoot walking through the woods up the stairs, but it's like he's on his hands and knees at the same time, or hands and knuckles.
Yeah.
That gave me such chills when I watched that.
That's great, man. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was like, I mean, because we have a couple different versions of that. Like, we're like, okay, how? I mean, obviously, most of the time he walks on two legs, on his hind legs like a human. But how would this thing deal with with stairs? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're going up and down stairs all the time. You know what I mean? So we were just like, Brian and I talked it over and we're like, let's try some different things. And he did that crawl up, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what would happen, because he's not really familiar with stairs. You know what I mean? And it just kind of gives like again, like the thing that I love about Bigfoot is that there's kind of this amalgam between like, a beast, an animal and a human. And I like kind of going back and forth, where sometimes he seems very human and sometimes he seems, very, very wild and like a wild animal,
And almost like childish too, in a curious way as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because, again, like evolutionarily, they're definitely not as smart as humans. They're not as intelligent. At least that's the way we kind of set it up in the movie. They're still wild. They're still kind of wild animals. So yeah, I felt that like and Brian and I talked about this a lot, that there have to be animal kind of characteristics, of curiosity and just the way animals react to things. So we try to add as many of those little details as possible throughout the film.
Yeah, and those details they make for a great film. So that's,
Thank you, sir.
again, my hat's off to you for such a great film, man. I love that film.
Thanks, man.
So this is kind of a two-parter question, and it goes back to the Patterson Gimlin film. So as like an enthusiast, what is your opinion on that film being real, or do you think it could be fake?
I mean, again, it's one of these things where, like, if you came to me and said, all right, Ed, you have to bet the life of your whole family, you have to really put something on that's, you have to tell us whether you think it's real or not. I mean, logically speaking, like, I would have to go, I would have to be like, okay, that's not real. That's a fake thing. But the way I look at it is that if there ever was like real footage of Bigfoot, that's the Patterson Gimlin film is it. You know what I mean? Like, and I've seen like, like I saw like Lyle Blackburn's, I don't know if you've seen it, like he has a presentation about the Patterson Gimlin film, and he examines like the muscle tone of the creature's legs.
Yeah.
He reveals that the creature's a woman. It seems to be a female Sasquatch. So like when you take it all into account, like the idea that like, it's almost like it's hard not to believe it. You know what I mean? Because it does look so genuine. It doesn't look like a guy in a suit. You know what I mean? Like there are, especially in those times, you know what I mean? There was, it would have to be like a master, creature suit person to pull that off. And I don't know, I mean, I know there were people around that time that were creature people, but I can't, there's nothing, very little to compare it to that quality of work. Like it's one, it's one of the best looking Bigfoots ever caught on film. I mean, it looks really, really good. And the fact that like, it seems to have like breasts and like, just this whole thing of like, okay, if these guys really, built a suit and had it fabricated, would they really add breasts to this thing? Like, why would they go, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's these like weird things that don't add up. And what you have to, like, I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen the Patterson Gimlin film, but like, probably, most people have only seen like the few seconds that are famous, when he's walking and he turns around like that, or when he looks over. Like that footage continues. And I would, if anybody has not seen the full version of Patterson Gimlin, go see it, because it's just as creepy and just as convincing. Like this thing continues to walk and they kind of follow it for a little bit, but it never looks like a human. You know what I mean? And so in my heart of hearts, like I believe it, you know what I mean? If I had to bet money on it, I probably, I probably would, my logic would kind of kick in and be like, nah, come on, there's no way it's real. But for me, even as a kid, like I always had that, dilemma going on in my head. And for some reason, I decided to err on the side of belief instead of on the side of, skepticism. So, and I still feel that way. Like, I think, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue with somebody that it's real, but it's hard to, it isn't a cut and dry case. It isn't something where like, oh, it can't be real because of this, this, and this. It's like, well, point to me to the moments where you feel it's not real. Like, show me the footage, So whatever it is, it's really well done. And if it's real, then, it's one of the most amazing, pieces of film ever,
Yeah. And I don't think it's more so the film that people think it's real. I think it's the aftermath and the timeline, because there's so many things that like, oh, this would happen there. And then he sent the film off to his brother-in-law and there at this time and whatever. So there's things, but you kind of answered a little bit of the second question. So as a filmmaker, I mean, because where this was filmed was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do you think it'd be logical as a filmmaker to add breasts to a Bigfoot costume and try and do a hoax, hoping, it would take off the way it did?
I mean, that's another thing too, is that like, what did those guys have to gain from that? You know what I mean? Like for us, if you're talking about like Blair Witch or Exists, like for us, Blair Witch, the reason that we wanted people to believe it was real is because we wanted them to go see it, and pay their money, and we wanted to make some money. We wanted the movie to go out, and we wanted people to enjoy it. Like there was a reason for it. There was like a capitalism was at work there. You know what I mean? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, Patterson Gimlin, like there wasn't anything other than just the footage. It wasn't like he was trying to get work as a filmmaker, or like it was just, there was this footage. They put it out, and it caused this sensation. And I don't know if he ever made it, how much money they made off of it, or if they made any money off of it or whatever. But it seems to me like
I think at first they didn't. And
yeah.
Then he started making some money.
Yeah. So my whole thing is like, who paid for that suit? Because that suit was not cheap to make. Like our suit in Exists, when all is said and done, cost probably $200,000. You know what I mean? So who paid for that suit? Because even back then it was going to be, it was going to cost money to make a suit of that caliber. And then again, and then who came up with the idea of like, let's put breasts on it? You know what I mean? Like,
no, I totally do. I totally know what you mean.
So there's all these like, it can't possibly be real, but then when you start breaking it down, it just starts to feel more and more authentic. You know what I mean? And that's what I've loved about it, is that like, because even because I know there was like some, and I don't really check up on this because I don't really want to know about it, but I know that when one of them died on his deathbed, supposedly he said something that it was fake or whatever. Even that, like, I don't believe that, like, I don't, to me, I just judge the footage for what it is and for the way I, consumed it as a kid and how it kind of consumed me. And again, even to this day, like I'm 52 years old, it still freaks me out. Like,
yeah, the possibility
it still freaks me out, man. Like if I'm alone at night, when nobody's around and dark, or in my apartment, sometimes when I work out of town, I'm by myself in my apartment. Like if I were to put on the Patterson Gimlin film and watch it, I would freak myself out. So even to this day, it has like it's just a cool piece of footage. You know what I mean? That kind of changed everything. You know what I mean?
It really did. I mean, it's the Patterson Gimlin film is probably the second or first most analyzed pieces of film footage, next to the Zapruder film. That's pretty heavily analyzed. And on both films, they still can't prove there was more than one shooter or that Bigfoot was real or fake. I think
it's inconclusive.
Yeah, and I think time kind of helps set in that it's real, or the possibility of it being real, because they can't replicate a suit. And like you said, $100,000 to make a suit now, I can't imagine how much money that would be back then. You think if Planet of the Apes was coming out in that time, and that they had a lot of money. That was a pretty high budget movie.
Yeah.
And then the guy that did Space Odyssey 2001.
Yeah. The guy who designed the suits.
Yeah, they won an award for that movie for like costume or whatever, I think, on it, or costume design. So yeah, it makes me believe that the film could be real. And I've had a chance to meet the other living witness, Bob Gimlin, and been to the site with him. So it just kind of sets in motion for me the belief that it's more real than fake, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's where I land as well. And again, like it's not like I have nothing to lose for believing in it. You know what I mean? So at this point, I choose to believe it. I choose to think, or more, it's like, to me, I kind of leave it as a mystery. Like, I can't say which, whether it's one way or the other. You know what I mean? And also, like, um, and I'm sure you know more about it than I do, but like, did the guy or the people that designed the suit ever come out and say, "Hey, we did the suit"? Because I imagine it would have been a nice, calling card for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's a guy that made costumes. His name is Philip Morris. He claimed to make the costume for the film, and then a guy named Bob Hieronymus, which is same last name as me, so my name is really infamous in the Bigfoot community. He claims he wore the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot costume that Roger Patterson paid him $1,000. But there's all these claims, like even today, like, oh, I shot a Bigfoot. Where's the body? If you wore the costume, where's the costume?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where is the costume? Or even like, produce, because, you figure, well, if they, maybe they took the costume and they destroyed it because they didn't want anybody to find it. But like, you tell me there's no drawings or any, like, there's no evidence of anything that went to design that suit, because it wasn't just like, hey, build a Bigfoot suit. I'm sure they had to sketch it out, and like, I don't know. It seems very, it seems, again, like it's far-fetched that it's real, but it's also, to me, far-fetched that it's fake. You know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely know what you mean. And I totally agree with that. So I guess the last thing I want to talk to you about is, do you have any new projects, hopefully Bigfoot related, coming out?
I wish. I mean, I have, like I said, I always have a kind of a Bigfoot story in my back pocket in case somebody's interested. But we're definitely, like, Greg Hale, who is my partner, been my partner since Blair Which. We've been working in television a lot. We've been writing stuff. We have a show right now with Apple TV that we hope it gets green lit, maybe sometime this summer, hopefully later this year. But we have, a bunch of development going on really all over the place. We have some films that are kind of coming up too, hopefully this year. But nothing, I mean, all pretty much, supernatural. I mean, we definitely are in in this realm of, ghosts and creatures, and, kind of horror. Horror is really our specialty, obviously. So if we get one of these TV shows, or a few of these TV shows going, there isn't it isn't a leap to think that Bigfoot might, or a Bigfoot-like creature might make an appearance in one of those one of those episodes or one of those shows. But right now, unfortunately, we don't have. There's no plans for Bigfoot. But I'm telling you, I still feel that, like, there need to be more Bigfoot movies made, like more serious Bigfoot movies made. Like, I feel that there still hasn't been, like, the bigger budget Bigfoot movie that's done correctly. You know what I mean? And maybe I'll end up doing it. Maybe somebody else will do it. But I still think that there is that it's still to be made. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, like I said, whether it's UFOs or ghosts or Bigfoot, I'm ready. You know what I mean? Like, I love the genre, and I love I love the horror that mixes with reality. That's kind of like, almost like a documentary. It doesn't have to be found footage, but the idea that, like, it is based on reality. You know what I mean? It's not like,
It's something that did happen.
Yeah, something that did happen, something mysterious, and you have to find that. I love kind of stories that are kind of tied to reality, and I think Bigfoot for me is like the ultimate reality creature. You know what I mean? Like, he is like, if there is something out there doing these things, there's a really good chance it's going to be Bigfoot. I mean, the idea that, like, all the Native American tribes had these legends, and the fact that it goes back for a really long time. Like I think that there is something scientifically there to the idea of Bigfoot. And so And for me, that's, that's the hook that I really love, the idea that like in our everyday lives, there are these mysterious creatures still out there, waiting to be discovered,
Yeah. And I'm out there in the field as much as I can be to try and hopefully prove it to myself for sure. I mean, I'm pretty much a believer in it, but I want to be dead positive that it's real. It's if I had to lay my life on the line, that way I would be sure.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I think like it's still, you have people like you and people all over the world that are still like as into it like me as I was when I was a little kid, I still feel there's a mystery out there, and even though now like people are like, well, the world is so populated and this and that, but no, man, there are some seriously isolated areas of this world that are still out there,
Mm-hmm.
So I think anything is possible. For me, it's like I've always said this, that like if Bigfoot is real, I don't want him discovered, because once they're discovered, it's going to become, oh, it was this thing, and here's the body, and whatever. It loses all the mystery. Like what I love about it is the fact that like you find the footprints, and sometimes you find the hair samples, and you find all the evidence that there's something out there. To me, that that's the beauty of it. It's like it's the ultimate monster mystery, and that's why I'm still like really, I still love it as much as I did when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that actually, I did forget one thing. I was going to say, did you ever have any experiences remotely or anything like that?
No, man. I mean, I wish. I mean, I wish and I don't wish. Like I've had some opportunities to go out with like some Bigfoot, a Bigfoot camping weekend or whatever, and I'm like, no, I don't. That's not what I want to. I don't really want to do that, like, because the best case scenario is that you're really going out there to hear something, and if I heard something for real, I would be like, get me out of here. Like I'm not like the courageous type when it comes to that. You know what I mean? That Blair Witch was born out of my fear of camping. You know what I mean? Of middle of the woods camping at night. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, like it would be cool to experience that. You know what I mean? But I do love the space, that I've kind of, populated, which is the idea that like it might be real, it might be fake, but let's just play around and and pretend it's real. Let's just pretend it's real, and examine it that way. You know what I mean? I still love that. I still love like hearing the stories from people, and I don't know, man. It's like one of these mysteries that that for some reason continues to live on. You know what I mean?
Oh, it definitely does. I relate to your fear of the dark because I've admitted it multiple times. I'm kind of on edge in the dark, and I've had a few experiences. So, and it's exhilarating and scary, but also it's like you crave it. The more,
yeah, man. I mean, again, like I don't like hearing something in the woods to me is not my idea of fun, but it is fascinating.
yeah.
Because that's like, I don't know, man. It's just part of like being human. Is like testing your limits and kind of, exploring and kind of, the curiosity of the unknown. It's something that I think humans will always have.
Well, okay, so I guess, do you think it's more intimidating and scary that you could possibly hear something that shouldn't exist but probably does? You're like, why did I get myself into that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's kind of the whole thing is that like, you're like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go out and and hang out with these these guys that are looking for Bigfoot. We're gonna be deep in the woods, and it'll be fun. Be hanging out with the guys, whatever you do out there.
Probably won't hear anything.
No, we probably won't hear anything, and it'll be good, whatever. And then you're like, well, but what if we do hear something? And I gotta like spend the night there, and like, and like, how am I gonna act? Like, am I gonna are these guys going to start making fun of me? Like, how am I going to act? Maybe you never know. Maybe I'm really brave and whatever. But I think chances are it's just going to scare the crap out of me, and it's not going to be a good experience for me. You know what I mean? So, and the same thing with a ghost. Like, the idea of like being able to see something supernatural would be cool as hell, but do I really want that in my memory banks? No, like I don't want to, I don't know if I don't want to experience that, but again, I kind of do, and I think that's why like, horror films are so, popular, in all cultures, what I'm saying is because there is like this, just this need for humans it is fun to be scared. And especially if you're safe, if you're in a movie theater or you're at home watching it on video, like you're safe, no matter what happens on screen. To me, like going out and like actually looking for Bigfoot it's like pushing my luck. It's like not following my own advice. You know what I mean? So
you're going against your better judgment.
Yeah. And honestly, man, like that's not what I want to go through. Like even the noises that I've on YouTube, or even when we were doing Exist, like just the noises that the guys would come up with of this thing, howling in the night. To me, I was like, all right, that's let's keep this in the fantasy realm for me, because I don't want to, I never want to experience anything like that, honestly.
I will say it's like, I have a lot of friends on the Finding Bigfoot TV show, and they've taught me a lot and taught me, like, if Bigfoot was really violent, they wouldn't be there. So yeah. I'd have a lot of friends that I probably wouldn't even be friends with them at all in the first place.
Yeah.
So, but it is exhilarating, and like you're saying, people kind of have this need and want to be scared. It's a human craving that I think people seek out for reasons they don't know why, but they do.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's like, we, even though there is still danger in the world and people get, eaten by animals and get shot and, murdered and, get hit by cars, we live relatively safe lives now compared to, when we used to live in caves,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's something that like is left, because, I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, you must have seen humans die all the time. I mean, you're going somewhere and you run into a pack of wolves or something, somebody gets hurt and you have to leave them behind. And I mean, you are dealing with death all the time. And I think that since we have gotten so safe, there's still part of our psyche that kind of needs to exercise that fear muscle. You know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely do. And like nature is it's a good place to go and meditate and kind of recharge your batteries and get away from the craziness that we're living in, especially in these times today.
Especially with COVID, man. It's definitely a challenging time. But again, man, like I think these things like Bigfoot and anything that kind of expands, that makes it not just about ourselves, that pulls us out into the world. I think all those things are so positive,
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Well, Edward, I wanted to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Sure, man. Anytime, man. Hopefully you can get out of your car now.
I actually have another interview I'm recording here at 7:30 Eastern time.
Cool. I mean, the audio is actually pretty clean, so it's like it's like a little recording booth,
It is, yeah. I like it. It's nice. It's also my squatching camping truck. So.
There you go. Yeah, so it's a perfect place to do these kinds of things, man.
For sure. Well, thank you again for coming on, and
sure, man.
I hope you have a good night. And until next week, guys, we're the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. All right, so we're done recording, so that was it.
All right, man.
How'd that sound?
Thanks, brother.